Hello, I am Danny, feeling thoughtful. Before we get started today, we're going to go on a journey. And before we go, we're just going to make sure that our minds are open to receive. Okay? So just keep an open mind. We're going to talk about creation. Okay? All right. So, before we get into the details here, let's just think about when we go outside or how we experience what's going on in our environment, right? We go outside, we look into the sky, we look at the universe. What is there? What is out there, right? So the first one would be space, right? It's space. Space. What else? Planets? No. Planets are leftover stars. Planets are made of stardust. Gas giants are made of leftover gases. Earth is made over the heavier elements. We are also stardust. Third one, black holes. That's the three things that you'll see out there. Everything else is created by the destruction of stars, right? So, we're going to start with this. This is source. Or I think they might call it Brahman. Not sure if that's spelled correctly, but we'll keep going. And Hinduism. And then you may also call it God. This is the source of existence. It is the source of creation. It is everything, right? In unity. It is the space, the energy, and the black holes, right? Well, what are stars though? Right? Stars create. So stars that die turn into planets. We already went over that. Asteroids and comets and things like that. They create, right? They create all life on Earth, right? The sun. What do black holes do? Death. They destroy. They take. There's black holes in every galaxy that just suck in everything, even the light, even the stars. So it's the dark energy. And the light energy of the universe. Right? So, back to unity and source. There's only one problem with this, right? If you're everything, then how do you experience anything? Because you are every experience. You are everything. You're the source of everything. You're every thing in existence that past, future, present, it doesn't matter. You're the source. So you can't experience anything because you are every experience. So what was the plan here? What did God do? What did source do? Well, source created two images. Okay? And we're going to call this one plus and this one minus. Because in nature, in creation, in the universe, there's always an equal and opposite force, right? Everything exists this way: hot, cold, up, down, left, right. All of these things we see as duality, right? There's two different sides of the coin. And to kind of explain that a little bit in detail, you ever heard that saying, if a tree falls in the woods, does anyone hear it? Well, noise, the tree falling is an experience, right? So it takes two to experience something. You have to have one person experiencing the thing. So if you don't have the tree and you're the only person there, then you can't experience anything. It's kind of like God. Can't experience nothing, so there's nothing to do. But if there's only the tree, it's the same thing. It's not going to make a noise because there's nothing to hear it. You need ears. It's an experience. So if you have two things, you could have an experience. And that's separation. That is you being you, knowing yourself as you, and then you knowing someone else as themselves. That's separation, right? Polar opposites. And so what we could do is we could label these, right? Because they create and these destroy, death. And whenever you have two equal but opposite forces, one creating and one destroying, right? Goes out and in, out and in, right? That's what this looks like. This is infinite energy, right? That's what this force does. Creates infinite energy in the universe. It's just an endless cycle of creation and death that powers itself, right? And so then you have these two things exist, okay? Because what do opposites want to do? Right? You have the space, and then you have the infinite energy. The space and the two energies. Since they're opposites, they want to attract back to unity. That is the goal. That is their natural state, to want to come back into unity. Right? So if you take this, and we're going to put it here. Hold on. All right. And you have space, which we can give it this sign because it's the void. That's all the parts of what make up source, right? The void and infinite energy. And these are just the two energies separated, right? So if you divide this, you get one, right? Because they're two equal parts, right? So one into one is one. This into this is one. It's two, right? So these things come back together, right? They come back together. And that can be represented like this. Okay? This is the seed of creation. Right? We're going to call this the pre-Big Bang. Okay? It's before the Big Bang happened. Now, what happens when you have infinite energy, right? You have this going on inside of the void, right? It's made in the image of God, this creation, right? We can call it the Christ. Right here, just imagine the biggest black hole you've ever seen, right? And you have energy. Every sun that's ever existed and the biggest black hole that's ever existed. And all of this energy just starts getting funneled down into this single point, the singularity, right? It gets funneled and funneled and funneled and compressed till it reaches its maximum point. You could say this is the most divine sexual encounter ever, right? The birth of the universe. You could see it happening here. Energy flowing out and then in, out and then in, right into the center, right? Until it just releases. Let there be light. Now, you end up with one. You know, the one universe expels itself into infinity. You have two. And you have three, 4, 5. This is where we get numbers. Sacred geometry. They just keep multiplying until millions. I mean, infinity. Not millions, infinity. Right? This is the fabric of existence that we study as science and mathematics. Okay? Now, how does this look familiar to you? You know, does it look familiar at all? Does it kind of remind you of an egg in a womb? The sperm is coming, right? It's coming into the egg. And it attaches itself. And it gets pulled in to the center. And then there's an explosion of light inside. And then it multiplies into millions, right? And cells start to duplicate. You get a baby. Every time this happens, a new Christ consciousness is born. right? It's the union of man and woman into a new life. You ever heard of the saying from philosophers, as above? This right here. As above, so below. What they're explaining here is that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. Macrocosm of the universe. This structure exists in all of creation. Not just the original creation, but in everything that followed. From how stars and everything are born in the creation of the universe to how we are born in our divinity. Think about this. Does this ring a bell at all? God created Adam and Eve. You know what's the story of the Garden of Eden? Garden of Eden. Created man and woman. Right? They ate the apple. They were hanging out. They were in unity with God. Everything was great. They ate the apple from the tree of knowledge and evil. And guess what? They experienced duality for the first time. They looked down, saw their naked bodies. And at that very moment, they got expelled to the universe. To the hell realm. The low vibe realm. Because they were lost. They were separated from God. And what they got to do is just remember it. Many lifetimes we go. Getting pulled this and that way, here and there, by all of our outside, ever-changing experiences. When if we just sat with ourselves, we would understand that we are the image. We are the microcosm. We are all of this. Thank you. Stay feeling thoughtful.